My name is Zara Shamji and I'm a fashion illustrator and designer. In this video, we will be discussing the history of fashion illustration and we'll be looking at the time periods between 1890 and 1910, which is also known for the art movement Art Nouveau. Before we get into this video, I want to let you guys know that this video will be split up into two parts. One will be educational and the other will be practical. In the latter half of the video, we will be creating fashion illustrations in the style of the illustrator that influenced the time periods that we will be learning about in this video. This way we can learn and grow as fashion artists and fashion illustrators. And if this is of interest to you and you'd like to come along this journey of exploring fashion illustration, then please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. So without further ado, let's get straight into this video. To give context to the Art Nouveau movement, I want to discuss what was happening in France prior to the 1890s. Empress Eugenie was married to Napoleon III and was one of the most influential influences of the time. She set the tone for contemporary fashion within the luxury industry, with her extravagant gowns and large wardrobes of custom clothing. This led to the birth of haute couture industries in France as she appointed Charles Frederick Worth, one of the first couturiers, to design gowns for her. Eugenie was famous for her large crinolines and her constant change in outfits throughout the day. Not to mention, she sought inspiration from Marie Antoinette. This led to more commissions from Worth as she never wore the same thing twice and changed in the morning, afternoon and evening. Her hairstyles and gowns were often copied by women overseas, and her sense of style was filtered into the decorative arts. British publications like The Queen, the Ladies' Newspaper, often sought for French fashion plates to use in their magazines. What's a fashion plate, you might ask? A fashion plate was a series of illustrations of women in luxury fashion, almost equivalent to a lookbook at the time. There are so many different techniques in creating plates. Traditionally, they are rendered through etching, line engraving, or lithograph, and then coloured by hand. Fashion plates in magazines, like the Journal des Demoiselles, was steel engraved, then hand coloured. Whilst in England, artists of the arts and crafts movement would mix Tudor, Celtic and Oriental influences that quickly became established as Style Liberty, a tribute to Mr. Liberty's encouragement and support of the development of Art Nouveau in Britain. The open trade between France and Japan during the mid-1850s eventually led to exhibitions showcasing Japanese ornaments, textiles and kimonos and many other items, which became the center of popular attraction towards the end of the 19th century. Paris's couture industry was thriving up until 1870, when France was plagued with war and a battle against the Prussians, which eventually left France defeated and Napoleon overthrown. The amount of lives lost during what some would say was a pointless war eventually led to Worth's atelier being shut and used as a hospital for the wounded alongside his competitors. Paris for a short period of time lost its influence over fashion and the arts. The Exposition Universal was created to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the storming of Bastille. In 1889, this World Fair consisted of 8 exhibitions, including the creation of the Eiffel Tower, which is still standing till this day. This resulted in 32 million visitors from Europe and overseas paying 40 centimes, including additional costs for other attractions like climbing the Eiffel Tower, or going to see the theatre or several other exhibitions. Some say this spectacular exhibition was part of French revolutionaries reviving the economy post-Napoleon War, as many of its sponsors being private donors. It was even said that many European countries rivaled against and tried to boycott this exhibition from happening, including Great Britain. Perhaps it was because it was celebrating the overthrowing of monarchy, which most countries in Europe at the time was under royal leadership. The exhibitions themselves were split into many different categories and even included many international exhibitors. 35 countries participated and 61,722 businesses attended, of which 25,000 was from outside of France. Some of the exhibitions included, but not limited to, the Exhibition of Science and Technologies, the Exhibition of Liberal Arts and Interiors, also known as the Palace of Fine Arts, and the Exhibition of Machines. This brought in merchants and businesses from North Africa, South America, and smaller exhibitions called pavilions to host the colonies of France. The international trade between merchants all around the world brought in many tourists, not to mention the many artists and architects that helped put together and build the exhibitions. Exhibitions on Japanese traditional kimonos, hand-printed silk, samurai armor, and many other items became a center of attraction at the exhibitions. It influenced many fashion illustrators and artists alike, from interiors to architects and painters and illustrators all around Europe and England. It was around this time that we begin to see a shift. No longer designers, illustrators, and architects looked to the past, but instead looked to the future for a new design and moved away from the idea of the Belle Epoque and frivolous designs and styles of the past. The explosion of tourism in Paris and cultural fascination with cultures all around the world eventually led to the art movement now called Art Nouveau, meaning new art in French. This style of illustrating was heavily inspired by Orientalism, the work of Japanese printing methods, also by the use of floral elements which had influence on the decorative arts. The use of pastel colors and swirly floral lines could be seen everywhere in furniture, jewelry, fashion plates, and illustration, even in the designs of the latest couture, as hundreds of thousands of people flocked to Paris to be dressed by the finest designers. France reaffirmed themselves as the epicenter of art and design. As the 20th century approaches, we begin to see a shift in silhouettes to a more modern style. Less frills, less exaggeration of the sleeves and waist. Fashion illustration artists discover new ways to apply color to their works with modern advances in printing and technology. One of France's pioneers in the Art Nouveau movement was Eugene Samuel Gresset. Gresset was born in Lausanne, Switzerland, 1845. He was raised in a creative environment by a cabinet maker and sculptor who taught him how to use a chisel and gouge. He studied drawing under François Boycon, who was a Swiss professor and landscape artist. After completing his studies as an architect in Zurich, he traveled to Egypt, which later could be seen reflected in some of his poster designs. Japonisme is a coined French term of the Oriental influence in European art, which also influenced Gresset's works. Gresset worked as a sculptor and painter until he moved to Paris in 1871 and continued to design wallpapers, fabrics, ceramics, jewelry, and woodworks that was placed in buildings. The materials he would use in his works would later be discovered as a cornerstone for the Art Nouveau movement. Gresset's use of floral elements and decorative objects flowed around his characters in a very freeing way. Some of his posters attracted the attention of American fashion magazines like Harper's Bazaar. He would illustrate women in gardens surrounded by decorative objects. His style had a stencil and graphic feel to it, where he would use black line around his plants and figures and then fill it in with color. His illustration for La Grande Dame in 1896 was created with wood engraving and a printing process called chromotypography, where the artwork would go through several processes, of which include, but not limited to, photocolor relief, gillettage, and chromotype. This was a quicker, more reproductive way of being able to produce color art prints than previous methods before, allowing more room for fashion illustrators to use any medium of choice to add color to their work. Louis Chalong was born in France in 1866 and was a French painter, illustrator, and sculptor who specialized in gold and silversmith, including bronze sculptures. Chalong illustrated many books, in which some of his works was published in La Vie Parisienne and Figaro Illustré. It was hard to obtain some of his magazine works besides Les Modes. Chalong often would focus his sculpture work based on mythological subjects, whilst most of his female characters were depicted as femme fleurs, also known as women wearing flowers. His style was heavily influenced by the Art Nouveau movement, especially in his sculpture. There was not much information about his life, and the year of his death is uncertain, ranging from 1918 to 1940. Georges de Ferch was a French painter born in Paris on the 6th of November 1868, who was a theatrical designer and industrial art designer that utilizes symbolism within the Art Nouveau styles. His father was an affluent Dutch architect and his mother was Belgian. In 1886, de Ferch went to study at an academy in Amsterdam that I could not pronounce the name of, but I will mention in the subtitles. He quickly dropped out as he felt like a formal academic training could give him nothing, so in pursuit of his independent career as an illustrator, he soon found success when he bumped into Siegfried Bing, a German-French art dealer who coined the term Japonisme, which was in relation to the Japanese woodblock artworks that would later influence the Art Nouveau movement. Siegfried Bing played a key role in importing Japanese objects into Paris and creating the Maison de l'Art Nouveau, which showcased artists that contributed to the Art Nouveau style, including the works of Georges de Ferch. You can see de Ferch's theatrical influence come through in some of his works, with the costume and millinery that some of the characters wore, alongside the industrial curvature and swells that become a popular landmark of the Art Nouveau style. De Ferch was said to be influenced by Jules Charest, a popular poster artist during the Belle Époque. He was particularly influenced by his posters for Café Concert. De Ferch later showcased his work at the Exposition 1900 in Paris, and even received an award for his contribution towards the decorative arts movement, which is quite confusing as to why he ended up passing away in poverty at the age of 73. The 1900s Exposition Universal was a pivotal moment for the Art Nouveau style. It showcased many Art Nouveau artists alongside introducing them to different forms of artistic expressions that came from Russia. This sowed the seeds for the styles that was yet to come. Photography was still not set up to showcase fashion. However, an emergence of young fashion illustrators began to spring. With new methods of print and illustration came new styles of fashion journalism, which was most noticeable in American magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. Paul Iribe was a French fashion illustrator born in France in 1883. After he graduated from École des Beaux-Arts, he started his career with popular satirical magazines like Les Rires, La Vie Parisienne, and La Sept au Beurre. Iribe quickly caught the attention of the young designer Paul Poiret. Soon after, he was commissioned to create a publicity album of designs to be known as Les Robes de Paul Poiret. Iribe produced a set of line drawings and then highlighted areas of the garment with color pigment, which was applied by hand using hand-cut stencils, a process called Bokua. This technique was developed by a colorist known as Jean Suede, who trained as an apprentice under Eugène Grasset. It's also noted that in his personal life he had an affair with Coco Chanel, who mentioned that no one could sketch an event more tellingly. Towards the 1910s, a young group of artists alongside Iribe began to explore fashion illustration through a more minimal and modern way, moving further away from the Art Nouveau movement. So if you've gotten this far to watching my video, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. The next part of the video will be about illustrating in the style of the artists that we learned from the Art Nouveau period, and stay tuned for that. So I'll see you next time. Bye.